The emperor meticulously selected several noble ladies for Crown Prince Julian, yet he insisted on choosing his crown princess by drawing lots. Father accidentally discovered the lot tube had been tampered with and secretly switched it back, ultimately resulting in my selection to marry into the crown prince's palace. I thought my years of devotion had finally been rewarded, only to find it had brought a heart-wrenching nightmare. The day concubine Rian passed away, a drunken Prince Julian stormed into my chamber, his crimson eyes filled with hatred. Serena Sue, if you hadn't swapped the name tag back then, Rian should have been my princess consort. She wouldn't have died in despair. It's all your fault. As his icy fingers closed around my neck, I finally understood that my tragic fate was sealed the moment my name was drawn. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the lot drawing. My eyes snapped open, my back drenched in cold sweat, nearly losing my balance. The sensation of being strangled felt so real, I couldn't distinguish dream from reality. "Miss, what's wrong?" Maidservant Ginny worriedly steadied me. I dug my nails deep into my palm, the sharp pain keeping my mind razor sharp. Looking up, I saw my father, the Minister of Rights, about to enter the grand hall for one final inspection before the ceremony. "Father," I rushed forward and grabbed his sleeve. "You?" He turned, a hint of confusion in his brow. "What has you so flustered?" I leaned close to his ear and whispered a few words. Father's brow furrowed deeply. "Are you certain?" I met his gaze and gave a solemn nod. He studied me for a long moment, asked no further questions, and finally agreed. "Your Highness, perhaps it's best if Rian does not attend such an occasion." A delicate voice drifted from behind me. I turned to see Rian gently tugging at Prince Julian's sleeve, her eyes red and brimming with pitiable charm. Prince Julian frowned immediately. "What is it?" "My status is too humble. If I were chosen, people would surely say your Highness showed favoritism. And if not," her voice grew softer, suddenly choked with sobs. Rian feared she couldn't bear others' mockery. As she spoke, her body swayed slightly as if about to fall, and Prince Julian immediately reached out to support her waist. "With me here, who dares laugh at you?" Prince Julian's voice was cold and stern, yet his gaze was unbearably gentle. Rian leaned into Prince Julian's arm, but her eyes glanced over his shoulder to shoot me a triumphant look. "How about?" She suddenly straightened up, looking at me with feigned innocence, a mocking curl at the corner of her lips. "How about your Highness directly choose elder sister Sue as the crown princess? After all, everyone in the capital knows she has adored you for years, delivering soup to the crown prince's palace daily." The noble ladies around covered their mouths with light laughter, their gazes drifting subtly toward me. In my past life, I would have been flushed with shame and humiliation at this moment, but now I simply smiled calmly and lowered my eyes in silence. Hearing this, Prince Julian also glanced at me indifferently. Let fate decide everything. In truth, Rian was not a noble lady, but a hunter's daughter. During last autumn's hunt, Prince Julian fell from his horse in the mountains and was rescued by her, receiving her care for 3 full days. After returning to the palace, Prince Julian insisted on keeping her by his side, even considering making her his princess consort at one point. A hunter's daughter, worthy of being crown princess. The emperor was so enraged, he smashed his teacup. "Julian, do not be foolish." Later, the emperor carefully selected several noble ladies for Prince Julian, but he proposed drawing lots to choose his consort and insisted on adding Rian to the candidate list. He knelt outside the imperial study for an entire night before finally persuading the emperor to relent. "Since you insist, let her participate in the selection. If she is not chosen, it will be the will of heaven." As the grand ceremony began, the ceremonial officer announced, "Your Highness, please draw the lot for the princess consort." Prince Julian strode forward, reached into the gold, lacquered tube, and drew a lot which he handed to the ceremonial officer. The ceremonial officer proclaimed loudly, "Rian of the Rouen family, chosen as crown princess." The entire hall erupted in gasps and murmurs. Rian covered her mouth, tears glistening in her eyes. Your Highness, is this truly heaven's will? Prince Julian's eyes brimmed with adoration. It is heaven's will that brought us together. Elder Sister Sue, I truly never imagined it would come to this. Rian turned to me, her gaze shifting between Prince Julian and myself. Your Highness, how could I presume to take the crown princess position? Perhaps it should be given to Elder Sister Sue? Heaven's decree is not to be trifled with. Prince Julian cast a meaningful glance my way. Serena Sue has her own destiny to fulfill. At these words, a flicker of triumph flashed in Rian's eyes as she feigned delicacy. Your Highness speaks wisely. This humble one was too simplistic in her thinking. She covered her mouth with a light cough, affecting an appearance of imminent fainting. I beg your Highness to draw the imperial concubine lot. When the ceremonial officer presented the jade divination cylinder, my heart gave a violent jolt. This had never happened in my previous life. Before I could gather my thoughts, Prince Julian had already strode swiftly to Rian's side. What troubles you? Has standing weary you? Seeing Rian nod, Prince Julian swept her into his arms. Leo Lee, you draw the lot. With these words, he walked toward the rear hall without a backward glance. After Prince Julian left, head eunuch Leo Lee drew a lot and handed it to the ceremonial officer, who announced loudly, Miss Chu Wan of the Chu family, appointed as the crown prince's imperial concubine. The young lady of the Chu family standing beside me knelt in pleasant surprise to express gratitude, while the other noble ladies showed disappointment. After the grand ceremony concluded, the noble ladies departed in small groups, some deliberately passing by me. Some people have been deluding themselves for so many years, yet in the end, they didn't even secure the position of an imperial concubine. Indeed, visiting the crown prince's palace so frequently all day long, and now it's all for nothing, like drawing water with a bamboo basket. If you ask me, His Highness the Crown Prince must have long grown tired of her eager demeanor. Shh, keep your voice down. Her father is the Minister of Rights. After all, I let these sharp words brush past my ears, yet the corners of my mouth lifted slightly. This ordeal, at last, has been escaped. In the carriage back to the residence, Father pondered for a long while before hesitantly speaking. Though I too never wished for you to marry into the Crown Prince's palace. I know you've long admired the Crown Prince. Why did you ask me to remove your name from the lottery today? I lifted the carriage curtain, gazing at the receding palace walls, and said softly, It's nothing, Father. I just suddenly no longer wished to marry him. I let the curtain fall and turned to Father with a light laugh. Didn't you and Mother always say young General Lucian would be a fine match? This marriage proposal, I accept. Father paused in surprise at my words, then patted my hand with relief. Good, very good. I shall send word to the Liu family at once. Speaking of my infatuation with Prince Julian, it was perhaps the greatest joke among the noble ladies of the capital. That year, I was 7, chosen to enter the palace as the princess's study companion. At my first audience with the emperor, I trembled so fearfully outside the hall that tears fell, my small frame shrinking behind a crimson pillar. Why the tears? Prince Julian stood against the light, his features like a painting. Since you've entered the palace, I'll watch over you from now on. As he spoke, he drew a piece of candy from his sleeve and pressed it into my palm. The candy was cloyingly sweet, yet it made me smile through my tears. From then on, I followed him like a little shadow, from the imperial study to the training grounds, through spring and winter alike. Once, the Empress noticed and teased with a laugh. Wan Yue adores our Prince Julian so much. I say, why not let her be your future bride? Prince Julian turned away, with reddened ears, but I took those words to heart and never forgot them. Later, when he casually mentioned liking Lee's crispy candy, I'd line up before dawn to buy it for him. Hearing he suffered headaches from stress and couldn't sleep, I pored over medical texts to brew calming tonics, delivering them to him daily. When he fell from his horse during the autumn hunt, I was so frantic, I barely slept for nights, nearly joining the guards to search the mountains for him. The Sioux girl is waiting outside the Crown Prince's palace again, a dignified minister's daughter. degrading herself like this. The whole capital laughed at my obsession, my foolishness, but they didn't know. That year when Prince Julian burned with fever, he deliriously clutched my hand and whispered, Serena. Nor did they see the tenderness in his eyes when, on my coming of age day, he pressed his personal jade pendant into my palm and told me to keep it safe. It was this elusive intimacy that sweetly sustained a beautiful dream I clung to for 10 full years, until Rian appeared. He began bringing her in and out of the palace, teaching her calligraphy and painting by hand, even giving her the pine soot ink I had gifted him. He would grow frantic if she frowned slightly while clutching her chest, rushing personally to the Imperial Medical Academy to summon physicians and brew her medicine himself. He even knelt outside the Imperial study all night, just to plead for her chance to join the Crown Princess selection. My heart too felt sour and unjust. I was the one who met him first. Why did his eyes now see only Rian? Until the day in my past life when the Crown Prince selection by lottery drew my name, kneeling before the hall, I wept with joy, believing the Bodhisattva had heard my prayers and granted my deepest wish. Yet she failed to notice Prince Julian's expression on the high platform turning icy cold, as if he were not striking his bedmate, but delivering a death warrant. I had joyfully sewn my wedding gown, yet on the night of the grand ceremony, he didn't even lift my bridal veil, only coldly uttering, as you wished, the title of Crown Princess is yours. As for anything else, do not entertain false hopes. With that, he turned and left. The red candles burned to their ends as I sat alone through the night. I couldn't understand. Why would Prince Julian treat me this way when it was clearly fate's design? The next day, a small sedan chair entered the Crown Prince's palace, and Rian entered as a concubine. At the concubine ceremony, Rihanna, dressed in a watery crimson silk dress, trembled slightly as she held the teacup. This humble one offers tea to the Crown Princess mother. The teacup clattered to the ground, scalding tea splashing onto her silk stockings. She gasped and shrank into Prince Julian's embrace, her exposed ankle flushed red. Serena Sue. Prince Julian's expression instantly darkened as he snapped sharply, "Can't you even hold a teacup properly? Or are you deliberately making things difficult for Rian?" I stared blankly at the porcelain shards still steaming on the floor. That teacup was clearly overturned by her own hand. "Your Highness, please see reason. I truly didn't." Prince Julian cut me off, his anger flaring even hotter. "Are you suggesting Rian deliberately scalded herself? Still refusing to admit your fault? Go kneel outside and reflect on your actions." He swept Rian into his arms, cradling her with such delicate care, as though holding some fragile treasure. The Crown Prince's palace immediately descended into chaos. Eunuchs rushed to summon the imperial physician, while palace maids hurried back and forth with medicine boxes. I knelt on the cold stone tiles outside the hall, watching the imperial physicians bustling about over that minor scalding injury. My knees went numb from kneeling, and by the time I returned to my chambers, I was burning with fever. When Prince Julian learned of it, he only scoffed coldly, putting on an act. Several days later, the Empress somehow discovered we had yet to consummate our marriage and summoned Prince Julian for a reprimand. That night, he kicked open my door and grabbed my chin. "How dare you complain to the Empress Dowager? Serena Sue, you truly have nerve. Then I shall grant your wish." Before I could explain, he forced me down onto the bed. His movements were rough, like a punishment. Afterward, he pinched my chin and forced a bowl of bitter tea down my throat. "Remember, you are not worthy of bearing my child." The medicine was bitter, spilling from the corner of my mouth to my neck. Staring at the swaying tassels on the canopy, I suddenly laughed. So the Bodhisattva granted my wish only to show me that a forced marriage may not end well. Later, I was neglected in the most remote courtyard of the Crown Prince's palace. While Prince Julian had eyes only for Rian, Rian was frail, so he ordered the finest tonics sent to her courtyard. Rian feared the cold, so he personally hunted white foxes to make her a fur coat. Later still, Rian fell ill. The imperial physician said it was due to pent up sorrow, a prolonged illness hard to cure. Prince Julian kept vigil by her bedside day and night, his eyes filled with a panic I had never seen before. He sought out some folk remedy from who knows where, insisting on using my blood as a medicinal catalyst to brew medicine for Rianne. When he slit open my wrist, his eyelashes didn't even flutter. For Rianne's sake, he drew blood from my wrist a full 49 times. Yet, in the end, she still died. She died during the first snowfall that year, dying in his embrace. That night, he kicked open the door to my bedchamber, reeking of alcohol, his eyes bloodshot. Serena Sue. If you hadn't swapped the name tag back then, Rianne should have been my princess consort. She wouldn't have died in despair. It's all your fault. He gripped my throat with such force it felt like he would crush my windpipe. I struggled to open my mouth in agony, but not a single sound escaped. In the dizzying throes of suffocation, I finally understood everything. It turned out his insistence on drawing lots to select a consort was merely because Rianne came from a humble background. He wanted to give her a legitimate chance to be chosen. He had rigged the lottery earned long ago, but never expected father to accidentally discover it and secretly switch it back. Since I was the one chosen, he assumed I had father intervene behind the scenes, causing him to miss his chance with Rianne. So, in this life, to avoid repeating the past, I instructed father to disregard the lottery and simply remove my name from the draw. If he went to such lengths for her, I might as well grant him this wish. 7 days after the grand ceremony, Mother entered my room carrying a sandalwood box, slowly unfurling the betrothal letter and gift list on the table. Her eyes crinkled with a smile, seeming thoroughly pleased with this match. General Lucian is upright in character and has admired you for years. A fine choice indeed. I lowered my gaze with a faint smile. I leave it to your arrangements. Mother, having lived 2 lives, I've grown indifferent to passionate entanglements. To marry someone who truly cares is already heaven's grace. If that person also happens to cherish me sincerely, it would be an extra blessing. Just then, Ginny lifted the curtain and entered. Miss, the Silk and Splendor Emporium just received a new shipment of fashionable jewelry. Would you like to take a look? I nodded. Very well. I can also pick up the fabric I ordered earlier. As soon as I entered, my gaze fell upon a gilded phoenix hairpin. Miss Sue has excellent taste. The shopkeeper carefully picked up the hairpin and handed it over, saying, This design was rushed to your post. Haste from the Southlands. You won't find another like it in the entire capital. I took the hairpin and held it up to the bronze mirror. It is indeed exquisite. Please wrap it up. Just as I was about to pay, a cold voice suddenly came from behind. Serena Sue. It's been a full 7 days. Where is the calming tonic you were supposed to brew for me? The bronze mirror reflected Prince Julian's tall figure, his brows tightly furrowed, with faint dark circles under his eyes. Greetings, Your Highness. I turned and bowed. I have been busy preparing for my wedding recently. I truly haven't had a moment to spare. Prince Julian's gaze fell upon the hairpin in my hand, and his expression suddenly softened considerably. Oh, so you're starting the preparations this early? I was about to reply when Rianne's delicate voice suddenly chimed in. This hairpin is truly beautiful. Elder Sister Sue, she said, her eyes fixed intently on the hairpin in my hand. This hairpin really catches my eye. I wonder if you would be willing to part with it? I gently stroked the tassels dangling from the hairpin. Miss Rianne, shopping follows the rule of first come first served. I've already claimed this hairpin. Rianne's eyes instantly reddened, biting her lip as she looked at Prince Julian. Your Highness. Prince Julian frowned and said sternly, It's just a hairpin. Since Rianne likes it, why not let her have it? Why be so particular? Seeing I had no intention of yielding, he tossed a pouch of gold leaf coins onto the counter. Today, this hairpin is mine by decree. Beads of cold sweat formed on the shopkeeper's forehead as he wrung his hands in dilemma, not wishing to put the shopkeeper in a difficult position. I placed the hairpin back into its brocade box. Since Your Highness insists, then it is yours. The shopkeeper looked relieved with gratitude. Miss Sue, have you come to collect the fabric you ordered a few days ago? He retrieved a bolt of vibrant red gold, woven phoenix fabric from the cabinet. It's all prepared, just as you requested. As my fingertips barely grazed the silk, Rian leaned in again. This red silk is truly beautiful. It would make a splendid wedding gown. Miss Ruan, why do you always covet what belongs to others? I interrupted coldly. This is the fabric for my custom wedding gown, and the deposit has already been paid. Prince Julian, who had been standing by watching indifferently, suddenly looked up at these words. His gaze fell upon the vibrant red gold, woven satin, a flicker of surprise in his eyes before turning into dawning comprehension. Serena Sue, he said, with a slight curl of his lips, tinged with faint amusement. You would only be an imperial concubine upon entering the crown prince's palace. Unworthy of such ceremonial red. He paused, then added as if bestowing a favor. However, if it pleases you, I shall permit you to wear it once at a private banquet in the palace someday. Hearing this, Rian dug her fingertips sharply into the red silk, but dared not speak, only casting a grievous look toward Prince Julian. Your Highness must be mistaken. I smiled, tracing the phoenix pattern embroidered in gold thread on the silk. When did I ever say I would marry into the crown prince's palace as an imperial concubine? Prince Julian froze, the smile on his face instantly stiffening. What did you say? I met his gaze and enunciated each word clearly. I wish to marry General Lucian, son of the far-reaching general, with a grand sedan chair and a formal wedding, to become his official wife. Prince Julian's pupils constricted sharply as he grabbed my wrist with such force it nearly crushed my bones. Impossible. I drew your name, and the Ministry of Rights has already recorded you in the Imperial Registry. How dare you, Your Highness? Choose your words carefully. I struggled to free my hand from his grip. The one you drew as Imperial concubine was clearly Miss Chu. Prince Julian's face instantly turned pale, and he staggered back half a step. No, this can't be. As if suddenly remembering something, he shouted sharply, Guards, summon Liu Li at once. Within moments, Liu Li scrambled in, barely steadying himself before Prince Julian seized him by the collar. On the day of the selection, whose name was drawn for Imperial concubine, speak, Your Highness. Liu Li trembled like a leaf in the wind. It was Clara Chu, the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Revenue's family. You personally approved the memorial, Your Highness. What about Serena Sue? Prince Julian's voice was hoarse. Sue. Liu Li stole a glance at me, bewildered but forced himself to answer. Miss Sue was not selected. Prince Julian stood frozen as if struck by lightning. How could this be? Prince Julian murmured, his gaze toward me dark and unreadable. He stumbled away, the hem of his brocade robe catching on the threshold, nearly causing him to fall. Your Highness. Rian rushed forward to support him, but the moment her fingers touched his sleeve, he violently shook her off. The force was so strong that she staggered back several steps, her back slamming against the trading company's door with a thud. Tears welled in her eyes from the pain, yet she dared not approach again, clutching her handkerchief as she watched Prince Julian leave without a backward glance. A flicker of venomous resentment passed through those tear-filled almond eyes. That night, the Crown Prince's palace was ablaze with light. Trembling night duty servants whispered that the Crown Prince had flown into a rage for unknown reasons, smashing porcelain throughout the hall. The next morning, Prince Julian suddenly barged into Sue Manor. His eyes were bloodshot, clearly having stayed up all night. The servants dared not stop him, watching helplessly as he stormed into the inner courtyard and halted before me. Serena Sue, he panted, as if he had rushed here in haste. This morning, I petitioned His Majesty and received permission to take an additional imperial concubine. He slightly raised his chin, as though bestowing a great favor. I intend to take you as my imperial concubine. If it pleases you, I can make an exception, allowing you to enter the manor in bright red. Your Highness jests. Bright red is reserved for the principal wife. A concubine must never overstep. I curtsied slightly. Prince Julian's eyes lit up. Does this mean you accept? Your Highness misunderstands. I was merely discussing protocol with you. I looked up at him, a faint smile on my lips. Moreover, I am already betrothed to General Lucian. Impossible. He grabbed my wrist, his voice suddenly rising. I don't believe it. Unhurriedly, I retrieved the gilded betrothal letter from my sleeve and slowly unfolded it before his eyes. Prince Julian's pupils abruptly constricted, his grip on my hand unconsciously loosening. He staggered back half a step, his face gradually turning deathly pale. How could this be? He murmured, suddenly snatching the betrothal letter, turning it over and over as if searching for any trace of forgery. Serena Sue. He jerked his head up, a flicker of panic in his eyes, but quickly regained his condescending demeanor. Even if you're engaged, do you think General Lucian can protect you? His father is merely a low-ranking military officer, while I am the crown prince. Your Highness, choose your words carefully. I calmly interrupted him, meeting his gaze directly. The Liu family has served as generals for 3 generations. His grandfather expanded the empire alongside the founding emperor, and his father quelled the Northern Rebellion, earning the title Dingyuan bestowed by your majesty. Are you questioning the emperor's rewards with your words? His face stiffened, clearly not expecting me to invoke the emperor's authority. As the stalemate continued, father hurried over, bowed, and said gravely, Your Highness, it is improper for the crown prince to barge into a subject's residence unannounced. Prince Julian snapped back to his senses and snorted coldly. The Minister of Rights wields quite the authority. Dare you lecture this crown prince? Father clasped his hands respectfully, but firmly. If your Highness has business, you may send a formal request for a visit. Forcing your way in like this will only harm your reputation if word spreads. Prince Julian was left speechless, his expression shifting between anger and frustration. In the end, he stormed off, tossing back a final remark. Serena Sue, don't you dare regret this. Only after he had gone did father sigh deeply, retrieving a bundle of bamboo slips from a study drawer and handing them to me. Truth be told, when I inspected the lot that day, I discovered the concubine selection tube was filled entirely with slips bearing your name. But your mother and I, seeing you had finally found peace, didn't wish to unsettle you again, so we kept it from you. I took the bamboo slips, my fingertips tracing the characters, Serena Sue, and a sudden chill crept up my spine. The handwriting was all too familiar, undeniably Prince Julian's own. No wonder he had reacted so intensely yesterday. Considering all that had happened recently, I was almost certain that Prince Julian had also been reborn. But why? Why did he want to keep me by his side in this life? Will you blame us? Father called out to me with concern. I snapped out of my thoughts, clutching the bamboo slips as I turned and walked toward the tea stove by the window. Don't worry, Father. Your daughter won't be foolish anymore. I lifted the stove lid and tossed all the bamboo slips inside. The charcoal fire in the stove was blazing, and the bamboo slips instantly curled and blackened. After lunch, Mother suddenly took my hand. Wan Yu, accompany me to the General's manor today. Lady Liu has acquired some fine Biluakan tea, and specially invited us to sample it. I paused for a moment, then nodded gently. I was just thinking of going out to clear my mind. In truth, I knew that while it was called a tea tasting, it was really just an excuse for me to see that young General Lucian in person. Though they had arranged the marriage for me, they couldn't bear to have me wed blindly and wanted me to meet him myself for peace of mind. Once we entered the estate, Mother and Lady Liu wordlessly retreated to the inner hall, leaving General Lucian alone to guide me to the rear garden to admire the flowers. I was still pondering how to navigate this arranged meeting when I glanced up and froze. Before me stood a youth in an indigo robe, a white jade pendant hanging at his waist. So elegantly poised, he seemed to have stepped out of a painting. At the sight of me, his ears flushed crimson, and he fumbled through a bow, nearly tripping over his own sash. Miss Sue, greetings, he stammered, eyes fixed firmly on the ground. I couldn't suppress a smile. Young General Lucian, there's no need to be nervous. I don't bite. Only then did he look up, his clear eyes strikingly bright, yet his cheeks still flushed, as if I'd been teasing him. General Lucian, and I spoke at length in the garden, from poetry and songs to frontier landscapes, though he stammered at first. His eyes shone like stars when the conversation turned to his expertise in military strategy. Watching his animated expression, I couldn't help but smile faintly. Only then did he belatedly flush red to the ears, coughing lightly into his fist before resuming his usual reserved demeanor. From that day onward, young General Lucian began visiting Sioux Manor every few days. One day, he'd bring a box of freshly baked almond cookies. The next, he'd present camellia branches glistening with morning dew, and later he'd offer exquisitely crafted trinkets. Though we were already engaged, he remained flustered in my presence, often fumbling with his already neat collar after just a few words. Once, Ginny couldn't resist teasing, "Young General Lucian never comes to our manor empty-handed." Hearing this, his hand trembled while holding a teacup, splashing tea on his robe. Flustered, his ears turned crimson. I merely, he stammered briefly before setting down an embroidered box on the table and turning to leave. "I just remembered, there's urgent business at the barracks." I opened a box to find an exquisitely carved pear blossom hairpin of white jade resting inside. Beneath the hairpin lay a floral note, upon which was neatly written, "The pear blossoms in my courtyard have bloomed, more beautiful than any year before." I smiled as I traced the elegant handwriting, suddenly feeling that such simple, ordinary days could be so refined and delightful. Life went on as usual, and the small trinkets General Lucian sent gradually filled my dressing table. The white jade hairpin carved with pear blossoms, the woven grasshopper, the floral note painted with a rabbit. Each one reminded me of his slightly flushed ears when he handed them to me. That day, I went to the trading company to pick up some newly ordered jewelry and took a shortcut on my way back, passing by the side gate of the Crown Prince's palace's rear courtyard. From behind the gate came Rian's furious voice. "Didn't you say this rebirth was foolproof? Why is Prince Julian now completely obsessed with Serena Sue?" Hearing the words rebirth, I paused my steps and leaned closer. A strange voice suddenly echoed in the air. "Warning. Strategy target Prince Julian's favorability score continues to drop. Currently only 45% remaining. If the mission fails again, the host will be permanently eradicated." Rian's voice trembled. Impossible. In the previous life, it was clearly. The reload was triggered as the host failed to achieve the Crown Prince's princess consort ending, consuming all points. This is the final opportunity. My heart shook violently. I quietly retreated several steps and slipped away without a sound. On the way back to the manor, my heart still raced fiercely. Strategy, mission, favorability, eradication. These bizarre phrases swirled incessantly in my mind, though I couldn't fully grasp their meanings. One thing was crystal clear. Ria never truly loved Prince Julian. To her, this romance was merely a task she had to complete. How laughable. In my past life, my sincere heart lost to nothing but an utter deception. As soon as I stepped through the manor gates, Ginny hurried over. "Miss, young General Lucian has arrived and is waiting for you in the rear garden." I steadied myself, composed my emotions, and only then made my way toward the backyard. Upon seeing me, General Lucian, his face flushed crimson, pulled out a gilded marriage certificate from his robes. I wrote it 10 times. This is the neatest copy. I took the marriage certificate and unrolled it, nearly bursting into laughter. This was no proper marriage certificate. It was clearly a whimsical narrative essay. It detailed everything from love at first sight 3 years ago to the pear blossoms we admired together recently, filling 3 full pages with meticulous accounts. At the end, a plump little rabbit was drawn with the words, "Vow of a lifetime," inscribed beside it. "Young General Lucian," I said, deliberately putting on a stern face. "Since when are marriage certificates written like this? The Ministry of Rights would never approve it if they saw." He frantically reached out to snatch it back. Then I'll go rewrite it right away." "No need." I solemnly tucked the certificate into my sleeve, looking up to meet his sparkling eyes. "This marriage certificate, I truly adore it. My wedding with General Lucian was set for the 6th day of the 6th month, coinciding with the very same day as the grand wedding at the Crown Prince's palace. That day, as I was in my room taking stock of my dowry, a sudden commotion arose outside the courtyard. Serena Sue, Prince Julian's voice, came from beyond the door, tinged with suppressed anger. Open the door. My fingers stilled mid-motion before I could even rise. The door was violently shoved open. Prince Julian stood outside the door, reeking of alcohol with bloodshot eyes. Serena, are you truly going to marry that man surnamed Lou? I instinctively took 2 steps back. Your Highness is drunk. Prince Julian's eyes lit up as he strode forward and seized my wrist. Serena, you care about me, don't you? I struggled but couldn't break free, saying coldly, Your Highness, please show some restraint. Restraint? He chuckled lowly, emotions swirling in his eyes. You never used to speak to me like this before. Release her. General Lucian's voice came from outside the door, cool and steady. He stood beneath the corridor, his brow carrying a sharpness rarely seen in his usual demeanor. Prince Julian narrowed his eyes, not only refusing to let go, but pulling me into his embrace. Lucian, what status do you hold to dare command this crown prince? General Lucian's hand rested on his sword hilt. The Ministry of Rights has registered my marriage to Serena. The 3 letters and 6 etiquettes have all been completed. Serena is my betrothed. Protecting her is my natural right. Prince Julian sneered. What is a mere marriage certificate worth? If I go to request His Majesty to annul the engagement now, do you think this marriage would still hold? General Lucian's gaze darkened as he replied with unwavering composure. If your Highness insists on this course, this general is willing to immediately request deployment to the frontier, exchanging military merits for His Majesty's blessing. His words clearly meant that even if it meant marching to battlefields stained with blood, he would ensure this marriage was protected. Are you threatening me? What if I am? Prince Julian's eyes flashed with fury, while General Lucian's knuckles whitened against his sword hilt, tension crackling between them. My gaze shifted between them. Your Highness, might I have a word with you alone? Prince Julian paused in surprise, finally releasing his grip. General Lucian frowned at me, but I gave a slight shake of my head to reassure him. After a moment of silence, he withdrew, leaving only Prince Julian and me in the room. As the door closed, the anger in Prince Julian's eyes softened, replaced by complex emotions. What did you wish to say? I met his gaze and spoke slowly. Does your Highness recall what you said when you gripped my throat in our past life? Prince Julian stiffened abruptly, his expression sharpening with sudden clarity. You said, if you hadn't swapped the name tags, Rian should have been my princess consort. Now you're about to marry Miss Rian. Your wish fulfilled. What more could you possibly be dissatisfied with? Prince Julian's face grew increasingly grim as he staggered back. You too. Yes, I met his gaze directly. I have also been reborn. That's why, in this second life, I refuse to repeat the same mistakes. Shock and remorse churned in Prince Julian's eyes, finally twisting into something akin to agonized struggle. I don't know why either. Every time I approach Rian, it's as if some invisible force seizes control of my thoughts. I simply can't help myself. I was drunk that night. I truly don't know what came over me. It felt like I was being manipulated. I never intended to kill you. After your death, I was consumed by regret for so long. I kept vigil before your spirit for 7 full days. That day, I drank myself into a stupor, and when I opened my eyes, I had returned to the day of the grand ceremony. Do you have any idea how overjoyed I was? I specifically begged Father Emperor to let me draw lots for an imperial concubine too. The entire urn was filled with slips bearing your name. I still don't know where it all went wrong. He rambled on at length, his words speeding up and his voice growing softer, as if explaining, yet more like confessing. Finally, he stepped forward, grasping my hand almost pleadingly. Serena, I've thought a lot these past days and understood much. Only now do I realize that, though I'm grateful to Rian for saving my life, the one in my heart has always been you. Give me another chance. Will you? I want to make it up to you. If you're willing, I'll go inform Father Emperor at once, dismiss Rianne, and make you my princess consort. When I ascend the throne, you'll be empress, the most honored woman in all the land. Your Highness, I've already died once. I withdrew my hand, gently tracing the wrist he had slit to drain my blood in my past life. So some things simply cannot be made up for, nor can they be redeemed by mere amends. Prince Julian froze in place, the light in his eyes dimming bit by bit. In the end, he turned away in disarray and stumbled off. Outside the door, General Lucian still stood quietly beneath the corridor. Seeing me emerge, he strode forward in an instant, clasping my shoulders as he looked me over. Serena, are you hurt? I shook my head, suddenly noticing his palm was drenched in sweat. I'm fine. I patted the back of his hand, soothing softly. It's all in the past. On the wedding day, a mile of red dowry adorned the long street. I wore a vibrant red wedding gown, with golden thread phoenixes shimmering under the sunlight. Midway through the procession, a sudden commotion arose ahead. Serena, Prince Julian, clad in crimson wedding robes, galloped over on horseback, his eyes bloodshot. Reaching the front, he dismounted and blocked the bridal sedan directly. Serena, come out and see me. General Lucian immediately reined in his horse, crossing his sword to bar the way. Your Highness is wed today. Why are you here instead of at the Crown Prince's palace to greet your bride? Prince Julian ignored him, staring fixedly at the sedan curtain. Serena, I know you can hear me. I lifted the curtain, my phoenix crown's beaded strands swaying gently. Your Highness, please return. Serena, I refuse to believe you could be so heartless. Prince Julian's Adam's apple bobbed, his voice choked with emotion. He stepped forward but was halted by General Lucian's sword sheath. Your Highness, I believe I made myself quite clear that day. Please leave now. With that, I began to lower the carriage curtain. Serena, wait, look at this first. Prince Julian frantically pulled a booklet from his robe, his voice trembling. I told you before, every time I approach Rianne, I feel uncontrollable. Now, I finally know why. Yesterday, I found these in her chest. She isn't human at all. She's a demon. I took the booklet and saw the word strategy record boldly written on the cover. Opening it, I found densely packed entries. February 7th, deliberately fell into water. Prince Julian's favorability, plus 5%. March 16th, pretended to be bullied by Serena Sue. Prince Julian's favorability, plus 7%. April 8th, intentionally drank drug tea, induced heart palpitations. Prince Julian cared through the night. Favorability, plus 12%. Strategy, favorability. I suddenly recalled Rianne's words spoken to empty air that day. She schemed relentlessly to approach me, control me, all just to become my princess consort and complete her so-called mission. Prince Julian's voice was hoarse. Those things that hurt you, they were never my intention. Serena, come with me. I can abandon the crown prince position. I can give up everything. I only want you. I closed my eyes and threw the booklet back into his arms. Your Highness, this changes nothing. Your Highness, a heart-wrenching cry echoed in my ears as Rianne stumbled forward. Her hair was disheveled, her face smeared with blood, devoid of her usual delicate appearance, more like she just escaped from a prison cell. Your Highness, you said, it was the only one in your heart, that you'd take care of me forever. She lunged and grabbed Prince Julian's sleeve. Please come back with me to get married. If this strategy fails again, the system will completely eradicate me. I'll really die. Prince Julian's eyes filled with disgust and terror as he shoved her away violently. Get away from me, you monster. Rianne staggered backward, suddenly bursting into mad laughter. It's all your fault, Serena Sue. She suddenly drew a dagger from her sleeve. If it weren't for you, how could I have failed again and again? Since I cannot live, I'll drag you down with me. A cold glint flashed as the dagger in her hand thrust straight toward me. Serena, in that split second, Prince Julian shoved General Lucian aside and threw himself in front of me. The dagger plunged deep into his chest, instantly dyeing his wedding robes a deeper, more vivid crimson. Prince Julian staggered to his knees, yet still clutched Rianne's wrist fiercely, preventing her from taking another step closer. He looked up at me, blood frothing at his lips. Serena, this lifetime, I've finally protected you. Rian stared at her bloodstained hands and suddenly let out a piercing scream. No, system, give me another chance. Don't. Her body began to contort and turn translucent. General Lucian shielded me behind him, drawing his long sword. Fiend. Rianne's voice cut off abruptly as her entire form dissipated like smoke in the wind, leaving only the bloody dagger clattering to the ground. Screams erupted all around us. Amidst the clamor, Prince Julian's hand slowly fell, the light in his eyes fading bit by bit. General Lucian stepped forward, his warm palm covering my eyes. Don't look, but I still saw Prince Julian's final lip movement. It was I'm sorry. 10 days later, General Lucian and I held our wedding ceremony anew. In the wedding hall, he gently lifted my bridal veil, his voice trembling slightly. I've finally married you. I raised my head, meeting his moist eyes, and softly brushed my fingertips over his slightly reddened corners. Silly. Later, we loved each other till our hair turned white. Surrounded by children and grandchildren, the Crown Prince's palace welcomed a new master, and the past was never spoken of again.